So now we get into your particular key.
Okay.
So Courtney here is the 63, which is doubt, inquiry, truth. And like we already said, she is the second line here. So we will start with doubt, which in the I Ching was called after completion, which is interesting because it's the 63rd gene key and there are 64 in total. Yet this is the one that's titled after completion. The 64th gene key is titled before completion, which speaks to the infinite Mobius strip that is wisdom, that is knowledge, that is truth. There is no end. There is no check the box, it's done. What you'll see is that completion, the only way that we can get to truth is when we reach a certain point that we stop seeking. And that is why it's called after completion. So the 63rd is a left brain thing. It's very analytical. It's very suspicious of the things that are around it. And it needs an answer. It needs an answer to that doubt because the dilemma here is logic. We need to understand in our brain. The problem with that is the yang trying to serve the yin instead of the other way around. What we want is we want to have our doing, sorry, I said that backwards. Yin and no, yeah, that's right. We want to make sure that we're grounded in this openness and this trust and understanding, and then we can do from that place as opposed to doing to get into the trust.
Yeah.
We've got it backwards. And when we're not in trust, we're not in love, that means we're in fear. And fear is what leads to this shadow of doubt, which ultimately gets to self-doubt. And self-doubt undermines everything that we do because we don't believe in ourselves. It leads to a loss of energy, even if that energy is unconscious. People with this 63rd shadow will tell you that they are skeptics. But are they really skeptics, or did they already decide on something like science? Because if they were truly skeptics, they would question even their skepticism. And so it's easy to be skeptical of something that you can't necessarily see. It's a little bit harder to be skeptical of something that is grounded in the physical world like science, but even science is nowhere near giving us the actual truth.
And it's not supposed to.
Exactly. But every time we get close, what we see is that right on the edge, things fall apart. Quantum physics is the perfect example of this. We can get so close to knowing the truth, and then everything goes sideways. When somebody in the 63rd shadow sees a sunset, they hear words. They think to themselves about the different shades of orange or the breeze that's happening instead of just taking in the beauty that is there in front of them.
I can confirm that.
The 63rd is the mind working in the wrong order. It's mind first, mystery second, instead of mystery first, and letting the mind follow up. Logic, like I just said, takes us to the edge, but can't make the leap into truth.
Yeah.
And that's signified in things like ideas of infinity, which logically don't really make much sense. Quantum physics logically doesn't make much sense. Doubt is born when you lose touch with your imagination, which is the programming partner. It's the 64th gift. And confusion comes about when relying solely on your logic. 64 being, or confusion being the 64th shadow, and logic being the dilemma here. So you can see how those are intimately tied together. Doubt is this pressure to know, to understand, and we seek a system of beliefs or a value system to resolve that pressure. But there is no way to resolve it. It's part of the operating system. It's built into the fabric of who and what we are. And so the only way to get onto the other side of doubt is to utilize your creativity to release that pressure. It's either that or you project that doubt onto somebody else, or it collapses into self-doubt on yourself. And science is our modern answer to doubt. Formerly, that was religion. But they're both just our ways to try and solve the problem of doubt. Both are ways of putting this outside of ourselves because we're not willing to be with it and sit with it.
I'm laughing because I am a scientist.
I know.
It's just funny.
What do you think that means?
I think it was I can tell you, so I'm a neuroscientist, and the reason I went into neuroscience, for one of the reasons, is that I wanted to understand all of the things that I doubted about myself. Like, that was the sole reason.
Now you know why. So truth is paradox. They are one and the same. And that's why anytime we get to the edge of a discipline, we end up in a paradox.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to the gift of inquiry, unless you have anything else to add on doubt.
Not yet. Go ahead.
Okay, so inquiry is all about keeping an open mind. So doubt sends us on this journey. It pushes us to try and learn and grow and understand. Where we get into, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? That's inquiry. The problem is when we try and fix that inquiry into something specific.
Yeah.
And truth is never fixed. And that's how we end up with dogma. That's how we end up with science. That's how we end up with religion. And once fixed, you defend your position instead of continuing to inquire for the truth. And that's what you were talking about, I think, with science, is that people are digging into what they already know instead of being open to what they don't.
Yes.
When we can align our insights with the knowing of the right brain, that's when we are in inquiry. So as opposed to following the left brain, the purely analytical, logical, instead we use our right brain to feel something, to have an understanding and knowing, and then we use our left brain to inquire or explore that idea. Inquiry leads us to inner inquiry, and that is where truth lives, because we realize as we're looking out at something that the way that I interact with that thing influences that thing. And so that means that I have to turn inward because there is no it without my perception of it.
Right.
And that's what leads us to inner inquiry, which is ultimately where we can find truth. This gift of inquiry follows sequences and systems. Unlike its programming partner, the 64th, which is the path of Tantra. It's the path of surrender, the path of just being and taking in. This is if you have this key, you might love the Gene Keys because it is a series of sequences and systems, which is a little more palatable to the logical, analytical mind. Doubt takes us to the question mark of who we are, of our being, of why we're here. And inquiry is about remaining open without needing to find a definitive answer to that question, but also not shutting down and saying, I'm never going to get an answer, so it's not worth exploring, which is the other side of how we can go south here.
Yeah. So what you just described, the first version, is what science is supposed to be.
What do you mean?
Like looking for an answer while remaining open that there's more.
Exactly. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So inquiry begins with an aspect of the world outside of us. But remember, like I said before, eventually we recognize that the observer and the observed are bound together. And once we realize that we can't assess things objectively, then we can turn inwards. Then we can walk the path towards actual truth. Because our primary doubt is actually our own existence. Anything else on inquiry?
No.
Okay.
Comment when we get through.
So moving on to the 63rd city, which is truth. So truth can only be realized after completion. Hence the name of this from the I Ching. And what I mean by that is when we have finally exhausted our brains. when we have finally realized that there is no answer and we can rest, then we can find truth. Logic and truth are on two totally different paths. Logic gets us to the edge, but it's never going to get us all the way there because it's a different path. Truth is not further on the path of logic. What we realize is that there is no inquirer, so that means there can be no questions, which means that we can just rest in the truth, which truth is ultimately just what is. What is happening moment to moment is the truth. Away in the Tao Te Ching, the very first sentence is the Tao that can be spoken of is not the true Tao. And if you think about that, he's basically undermining that book literally from the first sentence. Everything that I'm about to tell you isn't actually the truth because the truth cannot be spoken.
Yeah.
And at the same time, we are all aspects of truth. We're all aspects of a single truth. But no matter how hard we try to find that truth, we can't. So instead, we just have to merge with the doubt. We have to become one with the doubt. And once you're exhausted, then you'll find truth. Truth is relaxed. Truth is in every step. Truth is in the now.
Yeah.
Anything to add there?
No.
Okay. Lastly, we'll talk about the second line here, which is the spine. Like we said, it's about flow. And the best, or the thing that is top of mind for me is that if we can be in flow with the world, we can continue to respond to the different things that we are coming to us in our lives.
Yeah.
Which is just inquiry, right? If something comes and if I'm locked into a pattern, if I'm locked into seeing things a certain way, there is no flexibility there. There is no play. And so that is going to make us doubt everything that we're doing.
Yeah.
Whereas if we can be flexible, if we can see what's happening and see that there is more that we can learn about it, then that puts us into inquiry.
For sure.
You got anything else?
Well, I was just going to say there's something, I don't know if this is, everybody feels this way, but there's something about the purpose and also the core wound that resonate with me more than anything else. Like every time we talk about them, I have a whole bunch of breakthroughs. Like I just start to understand it. And I also feel deeply emotional. And I don't know, have you had that experience?
Yeah, sometimes, depending on the sphere and what I'm feeling in that moment. But I don't think that's a mistake that it's those two spheres. Those are the deepest parts of both of those two sequences.
Yeah, like this one really, every time, really opened something new. And I think it's like, so as I was talking about earlier, when I had that car accident, so I injured my spine, one of the things that I didn't do a good job of describing this earlier, but one of the things that did change for me briefly, and then I tightened and went back into it and had to relearn it, is that I have been plagued by so much self-doubt that it was becoming difficult for me to like function as a person. And then this experience and all the things I had to walk through made me so much more fluid and able to flow, and that's what allowed me to experience things differently because it changed the way that I was able to live my life. So I had to become more flexible. And the calmness that came with that was like something that I then chased for a really long time.
Yeah, and that's what purpose is that calmness. Yeah. It's that feeling of being at home in the world.
Yeah, right.
Not needing to change anything.
Right.
Or do anything.
Yeah. And what comes with, at least for me, what comes with self-doubt is like this hyper rigidity too. Like you're like holding so tightly onto everything and nothing can be outside of exactly what you want it to be. And that causes, it just is so difficult to operate through the world and to interact with other people until you can open up and let go a little bit. So. Yeah,
I mean, if you doubt yourself, that means you don't believe in who or what you are.
Yeah.
And if you don't believe in who or what you are, it's like public speaking, right? People get up on a stage And why is that a huge fear for people?
That was one of my huge fears.
Why?
Because I wasn't standing in who I actually was. So what I thought everybody was experiencing in me or projecting onto me was what I actually was. Like, I didn't know who I was. So their opinion, whether good or bad, would be who I was that day.
And what about who you are was worrisome to you?
I didn't even know what it was.
I mean, ultimately, I think a fear of public speaking is born of this knowing that we're flawed people. We're flawed humans, and we are putting those flaws on display for the world.
Yeah.
And that is self-doubt, right? You're not trusting that you're good enough as you are.
Yeah. And I think it was just like a not knowing of who I was. Like, there was so much doubt in any of the things that I thought I could possibly be that there was no concrete answer. So it was whatever other people's judgments were. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, and at the same time, there's something more than that, because other people's judgments could be positive, and that wouldn't put you in a weird place.
Right, because I'd always question those.
Right. So it's about the flaw.
Yeah.
It's not about the positive side. It's not about what could I be. It's about I am this thing that I am deeply uncomfortable with. And I want to hide it because I doubt myself. And that is what keeps us from living our purpose.
Yeah.
Especially you in this sphere.
For sure. And that has definitely been my life.
All right, guys, so that is the end of our exploration of the activation sequence. At some point, we'll probably do the Venus sequence down the line. I know that the Gene Keys are about to start an online retreat for the activation sequence. I actually think it closes today. It is February 9th right now. I'm pretty sure it shuts down. So I'll try and get this posted today, because if not, you're going to miss the mark. But I bet if you reached out to them, you could probably still join. If this was helpful, I can almost guarantee doing that will be much more helpful, because you spend a month with every one of these spheres. I can't tell you how long I've spent with each of my spheres, but it's a long time. And it
Couple of years now.
changes every time I look at them. Yeah, a couple of years of the whole thing, but I mean, like, with each specific sphere, it's been a long time.
Yeah.
And it makes a big difference.
Yeah.
All right. See you guys next time.